Have you ever seen someone you buried walking down the street days later like nothing happened? That was the exact nightmare that Chike found himself in. It had just been 3 weeks since he helped carry Emeka's coffin into the ground. He had stood by his graveside, watched the soil swallow the last trace of his friend, and even sobbed during the final prayers. Emeka was gone. That was certain. Until last Saturday, Chike was walking through the busy Yaba market when someone brushed past him. He turned and then he froze. It was Emeka, same face, same scars above his left eye, same necklace with their high school initials. He was alive, or so it seemed. But what followed that moment would unravel everything Chike thought he knew about death, about secrets, and about what Emeka was hiding before he died. This is that real story. It had been exactly 21 days since Chike last saw his best friend, Emeka. That was the time he was laid into his coffin, his body wrapped in purple lace agbada, his favorite color. The day of the funeral was burned into Chike's memory. He remembered the weight of the coffin as they carried it into the grave. He remembered the wailing from Emeka's mother, the disbelief on the faces of the childhood friends, and how the pastor's voice trembled during the final prayers. They all believed Emeka was gone. Emeka had died suddenly. They said it was a robbery gone wrong, shot in the chest in his car late one night, right at the traffic light in Festac. Chike had helped arrange the funeral with Emeka's elder brother. In fact, they contributed funds for the casket. It wasn't a dream. He had seen the body, cold, lifeless. His eyes were closed, like forever. Emeka was gone. Or let's just say so he thought. So 3 weeks later, Chike found himself at Yaba Market. He was trying to shop for his phone charger that got spoiled. It was a typical Lagos afternoon. Hot, loud, chaotic. He was jumping from one street vendor to another when someone brushed past him in a hurry. So Chike turned, ready to protest, but when he saw the person, he stopped. For a moment, it had stopped. Then, the man walking away had the same gait as Emeka. He was slow, he was deliberate, he was confident. He wore a black hoodie and jeans, and although his back was turned, there was something eerily familiar. Of course, when you see a friend of yours that you've seen for a while, even for a while, you still recognize them. So Chike called out. The man didn't stop. Chike hesitated, then ran after him. He said, "Bro, excuse me." So the man paused and then turned around. Lo and behold, it was Emeka. Same eyes, same scars on his left cheek, and same tiny birthmark under his chin that only close friends ever noticed. For a moment, Chike's mouth went dry. "Emeka!" he shouted. So the man he was calling Emeka looked at him and just smiled for a moment. And then he said to him next that "You got the wrong person." Then the next thing Chike noticed shocked him. The man turned and melted into the crowd before Chike could even react. For the rest of that day, Chike walked around like a ghost. He couldn't shake what he saw. The resemblance he saw was too perfect. In fact, he was convinced it was Emeka. But how? What did that mean? That night, Chike didn't sleep. He pulled out one old picture. He pulled out videos of them together, and anything to prove himself that he was right, that it was actually Emeka that he saw, and that he was not crazy. So the next day, he returned to Yaba Market and asked around. So in the course of asking around, the woman selling shoes swore that she had seen him around. She said something in pidgin like he dey pass here sometimes. So she said his face is always very strong, that nobody was always talking to him. Nobody did talk to her. So Chike became obsessed. He returned to the market almost every day of the week. Then on the 5th day, he saw him again. But this time, Chike did not call him, but he followed from a distance. The man walked confidently. He was heading towards a narrow street. Chike tailed him carefully. So Chike was hiding behind the cart and downfall until the man entered the compound. An old 3-story building with cracked paint and rusted gates. That was where he entered. Chike waited for hours. So eventually, the lights in one of the top floor rooms came on, and then he saw a dark figure. It looks like Emeka. So at this point, Chike was convinced that Emeka faked his own death. But why and how? So unable to carry the burden alone, so Chike reached out to Emeka's younger brother, Chinedu. When he told him what he saw, Chinedu felt silent. Then he heaved. And then he said, "I've seen him too." For a moment, Chike froze. Chinedu looked down and his voice was very low. I didn't want to say anything because I thought I was losing my mind. But a week after the funeral, I saw someone who looked exactly like Emeka at my too. I even followed him, but he vanished before I could even confront him. That was what Emeka's elder brother said. At that point, it was obvious that Emeka was alive. So Chinedu shook his head and he said that he didn't know what to believe, but that before Emeka died, he was into something strange, that he was always keeping secret. He once told them that if anything happened to him, that they shouldn't believe it, and that he, personally, as the other brother, thought it was just stress that was causing him to see what he was seeing. Now, this was just the beginning because Chike and Chinedu decided to visit the apartment where Chike had followed him. So when they got there, they posed as brothers looking for a room. The landlord was hesitant, but when shown some money, he became more cooperative. He told them that there's actually a tenant that lived in his house, that he was always very cooperative, he paid on time, and then he didn't have any issue with the tenant. So they went on to ask the landlord to see his face, and the landlord showed them a picture from his file. And lo and behold, it was Emeka's face that they saw. But the name he used was actually different. He used a name called Andrew Ajayi. That was the name that he used. Now, all the pieces began to unravel. They began to come together. So, Emeka had faked his own death, changed his own name, and also decided to disappear. But why? This was the same question that both Chinedu and Chike asked themselves. But then, the final clue came days later. Chike received a parcel. No return address, just his name. But inside the parcel, he found a flash drive. And on that flash drive, there was a video. Emeka was sitting in a dark room and then he was recording a message. And then he said something like this: "If you are watching this, then you have found me. But I need you to understand something. I had to disappear. I couldn't trust anyone, not even you." So for a moment he paused and his eyes were very heavy. That is Chike. And then he kept on watching the video, and Emeka said something like, "I was working with someone. I found out too much. I was being followed. If I stayed, they would have come for my family. So I left. I faked the robbery. I faked the death. I faked everything. I'm sorry, bro." So the video cut off at that point. In that moment, Chike sat in silence for hours. Then his heart was heavy because the Emeka he thought had gone was actually technically alive. The only thing now is that he could never go back to his old life. But now, Chike carried a new burden, the secret of a man who chose to vanish to stay alive. I'd like to ask you a question. If you were to be in Emeka's shoes, and then you discover that you were working for someone that discovered that you knew too much and decided to do something bad to you, would you have done exactly what Emeka did? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know. If you enjoyed this video, please do well to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And until next time I come your way, please stay safe, stay blessed, and always remember to be nice to people. This is That Real Story. See you on the next one. Bye for now.